Welcome everybody to our workshop, Reclaiming Educator Voice and Passion, Professional Organizations Matter with Dr. Cindy Gerwin and Markesha Tisby. We encourage you to view this session directly on the YouTube page, and that way you can chat along with us. If you don't see the chat, please refresh your browser. So without further ado, I introduce to you our presentation on reclaiming educator voice and passion. All right, here we go.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hi, my name is Dr. Cindy Gerwin, and just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm just finishing up my 18th year in education, and I teach fifth grade in a general education classroom. And I am also the past president of the Illinois Reading Council, which is connected to what we're going to be chatting about today.
And I'm Markesha Tisby. I am an education consultant based in Texas. And I'm also the president-elect of the Texas Council of Teachers of English Language Arts, or also known as TCTELA. And Cindy and I have a few ideas that we want to kind of tap into this today. First, we want to talk about a brief history of professional organizations and kind of define what it means to be a professional, and then discuss some of the benefits of membership in professional organizations. And then we're going to wrap up with this idea of the power of one degree. So, Cindy, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Would you mind starting us off with a little bit about the history of professional organizations for educators?
Sure. Thanks, Markesha. So I just want to talk a little bit about the history and how, as educators, we are, how that's connected to how our voice and our passion have been diminished over the years and how we can help sort of reclaim it. So, 1965, with the passage of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, we saw like an end to segregated classrooms that became integrated. We saw additional funding for low income schools in the form of Title I, which provided for professional development, instructional materials, various resources, things like that. And initially, the funding was used to really drive educational professionalism. So teachers were able to use that money to earn advanced degrees. And most importantly, districts began paying for teachers to have memberships in professional organizations like the Illinois Reading Council, which was under the umbrella of the Illinois Literacy Association, or the Texas Council that Markesha represents, which is under the umbrella of the National Council for Teachers of English. So, like, all of those organizations really came to be and provide teachers with not only professional development on a local level or state level, national level, but also offered conferences for teachers to go and network and learn from each other. With that increased knowledge and practical experiences, many teachers then began to claim a sense of autonomy in their classrooms, and their judgment was really highly valued with that knowledge. And that really also promoted a true sense of continuous improvement, which is bringing ideas from multiple perspectives to the table. Educators found then, I think at that time, they felt more like their profession was honorable and more gratifying, and just it filled them up with a little bit more sense of belonging. In 2001, then, that original act was reauthorized under No Child Left Behind. And that shifted again, like really shifted the focus to an increased emphasis on standardized testing, which meant more data-driven management, and then the expectation that even though our kids are different, that we teach them in a more consistent manner to promote equity, which obviously is a good cause. So you're always walking, that fine line. But that also led to more scripted curricula. And with more scripted curricula, you saw a corresponding decrease in teacher autonomy, like their professional judgment wasn't valued as much to differentiate instruction. And you saw a decrease in that pedagogical knowledge. And then a corresponding, which I know Markesha and I have talked about, decrease in membership in these professional organizations and attendance at these conferences. So kind of to bring that all together, then you're seeing what we would think of as private sector, for-profit, market-driven policies that are implemented in a public sector nonprofit organization like a school. And I just would really encourage us to think that the goal here is not profit, it's not competition, and our kids are not widgets that we can, send back when they're defective. They're not test scores, they're not reading levels, they're human beings. And that shift changed us as professionals and the nature of our organization as a profession, our identity, and it shifted, I think, how we've come to look at and treat the kids in our schools. And so we need to start to question that hierarchical structure to gain our voice and our passion back.
Right. So, in thinking about professionalism, you said that word a couple of times. I would love to invite anyone in the chat to define what professionalism means to you. And I feel like when we talk about professionalism as educators, sometimes we hear things like show up on time, or dress appropriately, and we have these standards that we have to uphold. But I would love to lean into the idea that professionalism goes beyond those things in teaching and education. So like we have to have a commitment to student growth, and our focus goes beyond like classroom management and content knowledge. Like I feel like those things are given, but we also have to approach each day with like this sense of integrity and a like genuine dedication to helping students succeed. And I say we, we take ownership of student learning outcomes. We are always reflecting on our practice, seeking feedback, making changes or adapting our approaches to instruction based on the students that are in front of us at that time. And we also collaborate effectively with others. We work with our colleagues, we work with families, we work with administrators, and all with this goal of continuing to advocate for our students. And so I think professionalism is so much more than showing up on time and dressing appropriately.
Oh, 100% agree, Markesha. I know one research study that I was reading I was like digging into this topic today, defined professionalism as having like three key components, like that you're knowledgeable, so developing our pedagogical knowledge, our content knowledge, that you have a sense of autonomy, which is one of the biggest things I think we've lost, and responsibility. And I don't know, when I read that, like, I know it sounds silly, but the first thing that popped in my head was that quote from Spider-Man, and I'm probably not going to say it exactly right, but with great power comes great responsibility. Like, that means then as teachers, like, we need to be responsible if we want to gain our voice and our passion, to advocate for ourselves and to go out and seek knowledge outside of our districts. And professional organizations just provide, a perfect place to do that. Because if we're just getting our learning from within our district, like I almost refer to it as incestuous. That's my new word for it. But probably a more appropriate word would be, then we're being compliant. Like we're being compliant to what our district wants, and that's not necessarily the same as what our kids need. And so I really think like expanding what we do. And if our districts aren't going to support it, then as teachers, we need to accept that responsibility ourselves. Like, what are you noticing in the chat? Are you noticing anything, Markesha, about like what it means to be a professional?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet, but I love
Okay.
the ideas that you shared. And incestuous, it just, I don't know, it feels appropriate to me to describe that idea of not going beyond, like the four walls, whether it's your classroom or your campus or even your district. So, no, I love that. And I know not all professional organizations offer the exact same benefits. And again, I would love to hear from anyone who is watching what stands out to them as benefits that maybe they're already receiving from a professional organization. But typically, like with your yearly subscription or your yearly membership fees, right? You typically get like a reduced registration rate for the conferences that you mentioned. You could receive publications like a newsletter or a peer-reviewed journal. Sometimes you get access to an online bank of resources like lesson plans or instructional videos, like things of that nature. So those are some things that come to mind. What else do you think of when you think about benefits from a professional organization?
Yeah, I would definitely like add on to that idea of the journals and the newsletter, but especially the peer reviewed journals. I think there's so much being said today about education from people who aren't educators, which almost to me becomes a little more like more propaganda than necessarily like things that we should be really listening to. In journals, especially peer reviewed journals, provide us with evidence, and it also helps ensure that the way that evidence was reached was through appropriate methodology, and that bias, as much as possible, is removed. And I wonder sometimes when we look at a lot of the data that we're looking at, is it really removed from bias, or is it data that's supporting what we want to think? And as a researcher, I think that's like, I know when I worked on my dissertation, that was one of the hardest things to do. Like, I wanted to go pick and choose what matched my thinking, which isn't research. Like, it's making sure that you're looking at all those perspectives and really inviting that different perspective, that different knowledge, to be making sure that you're making the best researched and database decisions. And I don't think that that's happening as much today. I think we're getting sort of sucked in by information that is cherry picked to match a certain perspective. And so the great thing about professional organizations is their journals are helping you take that information, which can be so overwhelming. Like, to read research articles is so overwhelming. How can we find a non-biased people that we can trust that are also educators to help distill that down to practical things that we can do in our classroom? And that, to me, is one of the greatest benefits of professional organizations. What are you thinking about that,
No,
Markesha?
I could not agree more. And I think it was Sandra who's in the chat. She says, I attend PD all year long and have throughout my 26 years of teaching. I'm not afraid to revise my thinking as I experience the knowledge from others who are having different teaching and life experiences from my own. I think that's huge. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. And you're a model, 26 years in, and you're still modeling that for your colleagues. I think that's great. Now, Cindy, let's shift this conversation a little bit
Okay.
more into our current times and talk a
Okay.
little bit more about our personal experiences. I know we have a lot of
Sure.
passion and we're committed to the professional organizations that have fed us. And so, why do you feel professional organizations matter so much today?
I would say I don't feel that I would be the educator I am today or the person that I am today if it weren't for, and I think it's really important to say, my active participation in professional organizations like the Educator Collaborative, like the Illinois Reading Council. I actually joined Illinois Reading Council. It was the first, like that and ILA at the same time, when I was in teacher school getting my master's, learning to become a teacher. And some of the literacy giants I met, like the first person I ever saw at a meeting was Dick Allington, who just was such a brilliant man, researcher, educator. And then like one of my second meetings was Dr. Stephen Lane, who runs the doctoral program that I ended up going into. So both of those giants and the many other giants that I met really steered my educational philosophy. And I would highly encourage you, like over the years, I've had to, for various reasons, take the time to like write about or articulate, like, what do I believe as an educator is really best literacy practice for my students to grow and like to have the outcomes that I want, to be like, to be readers for meaning, to learn about the world, to learn about themselves, and to understand others in the world, and create inclusive communities, and be like critical thinkers that advocate for themselves. Like all of those came from the literacy giants that I met. And taking the time periodically to sit and really articulate that really helps me like continue to advocate for what's best for teachers and for kids. Like that's really been powerful for me.
I
What
love
about you,
that.
Markesha? Like what drew
I
you
want to like
into
snap. So I feel like I was a little bit late to the game in my profession. I was introduced to the Texas Council of Teachers of English Language Arts when I got a district level position. And so they're like, my teammates, they were like, oh, we go every year. And so now I'm like, well, who should be sending teachers right now and not just the district level employees? But that was my introduction to professional organizations. And then from TCTLA, then they were my introduction to NCTE, the National Council. And again, I echo what you said about like meeting the literacy giants and like getting to hear from the leaders in the work and connect with them, have conversations with them, partner with them in certain ways. But when I think about our topic for today and what we're really trying to accomplish in this conversation, I think about three things a lot. I think about resources and how when I was a classroom teacher, I would have really been able to benefit from the resources that are available. But right now, like TCTLA is working to generate new resources to support our newly approved open education resources, so from our Texas Education Agency. So if a large number of districts will be using this one resource, and we know there's not one perfect curriculum or resource, like let's navigate that together. So that's work that we're doing actively right now, and that's exciting to me. But then I also think about advocacy. I did not know you could not have had a conversation with first year teacher Markesha about advocating for myself, my profession, or my students. Like I wouldn't have been able to contribute anything to the conversation. But recently, with this 89th legislative session, TCTLA, we interviewed our members or surveyed our members to see which bills that were proposed that they want us to lean into a little bit more. And we selected a bill that would criminalize teachers for giving students access to certain texts. And so like that work was important to get their voices and then try to do something about it. We created scripts for them to use when contacting their representatives with the language to like copy and paste into an email body or to use when they're actually talking to individuals on the phone. And so I felt like that was very, very powerful. And we even had a small group of educators actually travel to the Capitol and have meetings with the representatives based on, like first year Markesha, second year, fifth year Markesha. Like I would have needed that. And I still am growing in that work, but I feel like I get to have my voice heard by the people who speak for me, and that was really empowering. And I still feel empowered right now in the profession. And then the last thing I have to say is community. Like, that's something that doesn't always show up on a website or on a pamphlet or brochure or a social media post. The community feel that I get in the professional organizations is amazing. It goes beyond classrooms, it goes beyond campus buildings, districts, and even county lines, state lines. And I love that. We are not in this work alone. And that's encouraging to me.
I'm going to add on to that just a little bit, Markesha. Like that idea of community. I think like when we were talking about this talk today, I thought about Dr. Lane has a book called Igniting the Passion for Reading. And in it is a visual of a circle of a complete reader that's half cognitive and half affective domain. So cognitive domain, obviously focusing on developing our intellectual, our knowledge, our pedagogical. And I think our district PD is really honed in on that often. But what I think professional organizations really address is our affective domain, which is our emotions, our attitudes, our values, our interests, our choice and voice, right? And that engagement changes when we get a choice and voice. Like I think of Ellen Keene, who just is presented right before us. And I think about like compliance versus engagement. Like we should have this urgency and this emotional resonance to like bend our perspective and see the world and feel joy. And I feel so much joy in teaching. It fills me up when I am with my different communities and not just in my district. So I think that you tapped on something that I think is huge. So thank you for sharing that one.
Oh, absolutely. And you shared an idea with me recently that I just keep thinking about. And I would love for you to, like, as we kind of wrap up our time, is share this idea of the power of 1 degree.
Yeah. So I'm going to quick show off the book. So this is where I got it from. And it's just a short little inspirational book. And the authors of the book talk about the difference between like hot water and boiling water is 1 degree. So 1 degree, which makes boiling water, can generate enough steam to power a locomotive. Like one small change can generate enough power to change something, to move something, right? So I was thinking about like, how can we challenge ourselves and our audience to consider one thing, like don't overwhelm yourself, right? That we could do differently, like joining a professional organization that would help power this locomotive so that we can change the narrative and our educators can really regain their voice and their passion. So like my one thing is continuing to be actively involved, and I'm looking for other ways to contribute. Right now, advocacy is like a really big thing for me. So looking for a better way to advocate. What's one thing that you feel like is helping you gain your voice and passion, Markesha?
So, man, because I feel like I just dipped my toes into advocacy, I would like to learn more. Like I don't feel like that's something I'm leading yet, but I love the learning about it and leaning into other organizations that produce information so that then I have the language to articulate the things that are important to me that I feel are important for students. And so that's kind of where I am. But I mean, for someone who's not a part of a professional organization yet, like maybe that's their next action step. Researching and seeing, do they have local affiliates in their area, state affiliates, or even at the national level? Maybe they get a peer-reviewed journal and they just have a collection. Maybe like setting a goal, and with each journal, I'm going to choose one article that I want to read and share with someone, or read and try to apply it. So like, just one little thing, or tapping into the community that you're already in.
Yeah,
It's
I
our
would
mini
say
one
as we're
things.
kind of as we're wrapping up today, if members who are watching us or viewers who are watching us want to throw in the chat, what's one thing that you can maybe do a little bit differently that's going to help fuel and generate that power to bring us together to raise our voice? I know even sometimes just educating people, I think, if you are someone who reads research, educating, like just telling somebody else how your understanding might be different than what has been sort of bent into um, an idea that supports something, like just reading and sharing that can make a huge difference.
I see Chris says he has many one things. But I think that is, that's common. We could be here for a long time talking about our many one things, but he mentioned advocating to protect us from climate change, like just one thing.
Yeah. And thank you to Troy. You've been a huge help, like putting in the various different organizations, like different ways to get involved, and some of the books that we mentioned. So thank you, Troy, for that.
Awesome.
Any other thoughts?
And I did
adopting our charities. Yeah. I'm going to throw that one back out there because I like the 2 charities that were selected for today. I think are phenomenal. Like, I don't want to just donate it. I almost feel like I want to ask, like, how can I help and get involved more? Because both of those causes are so, so, so important right now.
Absolutely. Yes. And Sandra added, since her students can't show up to protest our current government, attending protests and marches as often as possible. Like, standing in the
I
gap.
just thought of that when she said that. First Books, which is a nonprofit organization, has something called Time for a Change, and they have a whole curriculum built in there to help teach your children or your students how to become change makers. And I've been playing with that, and we're going to be my class is going to City Hall next week to do some change making. So I'm super excited about that. That's another great resource.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that time flew by, but thank you, everyone, for joining in and being a part of our conversation today.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone, and thank you, Markesha. It's been such an absolute pleasure to meet you and work with you, and I can't wait to work with you more.
Likewise.
Oh, Abby, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for this great presentation, Dr. Cindy Gerwin and Markesha Tisby. All the amazing resources for the different ways that people can get involved in professional communities, really super helpful. So as we wrap up this session, we have another session upcoming with Chris Tovani and Sam Bennett. As was just mentioned, we have our charities. So please, again, it's a free day for educators today. So if you could pay the joy forward to one of the 2 charities chosen today, that would be excellent. And thank you again for joining, and we will see you over into the next session.